Christy Winters-Scott, welcome to Sports Spectrum. Good to see you.
Oh my gosh, Jason, thank you so much for having me. We've been connected over the interwebs for years,
Yes.
but now it's really great to actually be in close contact.
Absolutely. It's great to see you and great to talk to you. Lots to talk about. I think the best way to start this conversation is the hats that you juggle, which I'm looking at your journey in your life, and you're a mom and a wife and a basketball analyst and a basketball coach. I'm amazed we even found time to record a podcast, Christy, if I'm being honest.
There are a lot of things going on. Yep. And there's no balance. You're right. It is a juggle. So that's exactly it.
Well, is it just constantly busy and it's just par for the course here at this point?
It is, but it's not out of the realm of what my mind does all the time. So even if there is a down day, which I tried to make yesterday, but to no avail, I think my mind is still always like an airplane never landing kind of thing. I think when you try to woo-saw, there are a lot of lakes around here where I live, and I try to take walks and try to decompress. But while I'm doing that, I have like 10 wheels churning in my brain. So It's really hard to kind of, like I said, land the plane and kind of totally just woo-saw all the way out and yoga it down. It's just not possible. But I don't think I would want life any other way. And I don't want to say I don't know how to relax, but I think I was just wired like that for being an athlete myself. It's like, what can I do to be better today? And I'm like always trying to find what that is.
No, that's good. Now let's put the mom hat on for a second, because you have a daughter who plays ball at Georgetown, your son playing high school ball, reached the Final Four in the state. So had a great season there. How are you as a mama watching your kids play? What's it like watching them play?
I'm a nervous wreck as a mom watching my kids play. I am, it's already bad enough when I'm calling games that my headset is over here because I just get so entrenched and live and die on every play. It's like, that's why my voice is a little squeaky now, because, there's always a game, there's always something to do. But I think for me as a mom, the first and foremost thing, I just love watching them play and compete and being their best selves. And, my husband and I both played, all three of our kids played, and all of us were different players. And I think, we're not all cookie cutter. We're not, okay, this is your family, so all of you do these things. Like, no, like we're all different in our thinking. We're all different in how we go about things. And as basketball players. So I just think there's a real beauty in that. But as a mom, I think it's much easier to coach, because I feel like, you can kind of change things, and if it works, it works, and it's on you if it works, and it's on you if it doesn't work too. It's on the kids when it works, and it's on me if it doesn't work. That's what I like to say as a coach. But as a mom, I think, just wanting them to stay safe and not get injured, I think is like the major thing that I worry about. Or if someone, has a really hard foul on them that's outside the realm of the rules of basketball, that gets my hair on fire. So that's a little different as a mom. I think I'm just so protective of them physically that way. But I think mentally too, just to make sure that they're in that moment and that they're being the best that they can be in that moment. And I think as a mom, or as a parent in general, I think that's what you want for your kids, to be in a really great place mentally and to be healthy physically. And the blessing of that is immense. So I think I'm a big cheer mom, and I don't just cheer for my kids, and they'll tell you, and their teammates will tell you, I cheer for everybody. I cheer for the game. I cheer for their team. Let the coaches do what they have to do as coaches. I'm not calling, what about my Johnny? I'm not that like that, because I'm a coach too. So I don't want, that your time is earned during practice. They know that. They've been around me their entire lives in the gym with juice boxes and goldfish when they were babies. And so they've heard it from me, even if I don't sit them down and tell them, they're in the gym, and they hear me telling that to the team their whole lives. So I think there's just a great understanding of what it means to be on a team and what it takes to earn everything that you get.
Is it hard though to separate mom and coach? And I only ask that, obviously you're a coach and you're a former player too, but we had Trent Dilfer on the show recently. Trent's the former NFL quarterback, and we had him and his daughter on Tori, and his daughter is a standout volleyball player at Louisville. And Trent would find himself putting the coach hat on, not meaning to, and his daughter saying to him, Dad, I just need you to be dad right now, not the former football player who knows about competing and all this other stuff. Just be dad. Have you had to have either that moment or just had to maybe, I don't even talk to God and ask him, like, help me be the mom right now and not, not the coach?
Absolutely. I always pray for discernment in terms of that, what to say, how to say, and when to say. I think are three major keys as a parent, but I think just in general. But for me, you know, I really was blessed to have the opportunity to coach my daughter in high school all 4 years. So there was that direct dynamic where it wasn't football and volleyball like Trent, but for me, it was basketball. And there was, I think, a lot of pressure on her to be in that dynamic with me. And I think initially my concern for her on the varsity level as a freshman, and I was the coach, was that she earned that right on her own. It wasn't like, well, I'm putting my Sally on the team because I'm coaching, and you know, once she's finished, I'm leaving. And I think that came up last year when she graduated high school. Well, now Brianna's gone, and so now you're going to leave. I'm like, first of all, no. Second of all, I didn't start coaching when she was a year old at South Lakes High School, with the understanding that she would play at South Lakes basketball, and she ended up playing volleyball as well. Didn't know that either. So it's not based on, my passion for the game is not based on what my children are doing necessarily, or if they're going to play or not play. That's my personal passion. And it just so happened that she attended South Lakes. It just so happened that she found passion of her own with basketball, and it fit what we needed as a team when she was a freshman. So she ended up being, you know, an all-state player of the year and all this stuff, voted by other coaches. Right. So it's not me. So she found her own niche. She found her own respect, and she walked in that space. But for me, initially, as I was saying, in her freshman year, my concern for her was, you know, the team dynamic. So if the team was sitting in the locker room, she comes walking in, did everyone be quiet? Like, oh, here comes the coach's kid. And she said it wasn't like that at all. And I think ad nauseum, I asked her, how are they treating you? Are you okay? Like, is everything all right or whatever? And then I had to make sure that my verbiage was right. I mean, she was a freshman, and if she did something well, I would walk by her and say, that was a good pass. You know what I mean? But if someone else on the team, I'm like, Tia, that's a great pass, I would say it out loud. But I didn't want it to be like I was overpraising my own child, right? Because they all knew who she was, and they all know her. They grew up with her and whatever. But I just wanted to make sure that sounded right. And my coaches, God bless them, they're so like just right on it with me, and try to keep me stabilized emotionally in that way, and not to be a worry wart. But they really helped me with that. And they said, well, if she does something well, you got to tell her, because if she didn't box out, I'm like, Bree, you have to box out. I would say that out loud. Right. Yeah. But the positive things, I would pump my brakes on, because the first thing I ask my kids after practice is, how did practice go? What did the coach say? And I don't want that narrative to go back home. Well, she was just saying good things about Brianna. Because teenage girls, right? I'm like, no, and then they said, well, you have to say it about everybody. But I'm like, even if I say that the same way about everyone, it's going to be interpreted differently because she's my daughter, right? But I think it was halfway through freshman year where I would just say it, if she did something well, I'm like, that's it, like, good job, Bree. And I was like, okay, I'm getting more comfortable with it. And if it was a good play, they saw it was a good play too, like I did, and they're just going to have to ride with me on it. So it took me a while. I think she adjusted very well. I think for me, it took me a while because I was cognizant of how I was being heard by the rest of the team. So we won a couple of championships, cut some nets together, and that is immeasurable. And I'll never forget that. She was just amazing in those games as well. And that's her moment. That's totally her moment. And she said it was the best day of her life, those championships. And I'll never forget her saying that. The moment is what it is, and I'll never forget that, and put that in a nutshell. But, hearing her say that was the best day of her life, like, she's 18 and that's the best day of her life so far. That's like, to me, that's part of it. Yeah, that's exactly in that way. Right. Yeah. Forever grateful for that.
So you know, and maybe people will start to ask this question as well when they look at your resume, because you're a current basketball analyst and you're also a current high school basketball coach, and basketball, other than maybe the WNBA, overlaps, college does, with high school at the same time. So immediately I'm thinking, how are you doing this? So tell me about your schedule. Let's take January, for example, because that's a month that's in the past and we can kind of look back. That's a month where college basketball is heating up. High school basketball is heating up. What's the schedule like? Are you doing games during the weekend, then, you know, coaching during the week and then calling them on the weekend? Like, what does that look like for you? It's got to be a little bit of chaos, I would think.
That's a great word for it. Beautiful chaos. Like, beautiful chaos. I think that, you know, those two words come to mind, but I think it's, you know, January is absolutely the peak time for both seasons. And for high school basketball in our area, you know, at the end of January, that's the end of the regular season. So there's jockeying for, you know, position for tournaments and things like that. So it's not like the end of February for college basketball in that instance. So it is very stressful because you are trying to make sure you have, you know, all the I's dotted and T's crossed. But I think for me, there's always a way. I get my college schedule in October. And so they're like, okay, I have on my spreadsheet, which is handwritten, you know, it's not Excel, you know, sorry for everybody that does their things on computer. But I need to write it down so I can tangibly see everything. So I have my broadcasting schedule dates that are possibilities. And then I have our South Lakes High School girls schedule and the boys schedule for my son, and then Bree's Georgetown schedule. So I had this 4-pronged list on a legal pad that was pretty maddening to look at. So I was going direct hits, like, where do I have a direct hit? And that's what I call it, you know, like, well, I have a direct hit here. I can't do that game, or Bree's on the road, so I can't travel to that game, or I can't be at my son's game, which was real. That was really the direct hit, was my son's games and my games, because he was on the varsity team as freshman this past season. And our games are like, if we played at home, our boys would be on the road playing the same opponent at the same time. So that was more the conundrum for me than the broadcasting side of it. Because the Big Ten Network in particular they've been fantastic over the time I've been working with them for 7-8 seasons now. But they know that I coach. They know I have kids that play basketball, and, you know, they just say, here's the big list. Let me know what you can and cannot do. And this year I tried not to give back as many games as I have in the past, because I'm trying to not say no a lot. I'm trying to, you know, the opportunities, who knows when they'll stop coming. So I tried to say yes more this year. But even with that being said, I think being able to broadcast games from home, that really saved me a lot. During the week, I would have maybe 2 games during the week, and I would go for a South Lakes practice from 3:30 to 5, and then have a game to call it like 7 or 8 at night, with our kittens running around, which is, you know, another whole story, Ace and Deuce. So that was, you know, I would just run home, change my top, you know, and zoom in kind of like we're doing, and broadcast the game. And so I think with that, so COVID, as horrible as it's been for the last 2 years, I think being able to do that from home and broadcast a game from home, but the game is in Michigan or Ohio State, where I don't have to travel, I think that really took a lot of stress off of me in terms of saying yes to more things, because I'm like, well, I wouldn't be able to do that game if it involved travel. But the fact that I'm at home, I'm going to squeeze that in and hustle there and get on set, you know, and get that done. So, but it was really hard this year, honestly, just to be able to balance being a mom and a coach during that time, more than being a broadcaster and a coach. I think it, you know, that can work its way out. But I think being a mom and a coach was really hard. And I hope I don't start like crying. People know me, so it doesn't take much, but that's been really hard for me to miss him playing. So a couple of times I missed coaching. Like, I went to see him play, and that was really hard too, because I'm, you know, it's like the South Lakes program is like my 4th child. So I just feel like when you make heart against head decisions, that's pretty easy, right? You can do that. But when it's heart against heart,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like there's no winning and there's no losing. Yeah.
Exactly. That's what creates the little teardrop that's for me.
Yeah. No, I see it.
Tough,
I see
really
it.
tough.
How would it be, or have you, I guess, have you broadcasted one of your daughter's games? Like, did you do a Georgetown game this year?
Yeah, it was really close. When I first read the email, it was like, "Are you available to do the UConn game on the 20th of February or January?" I can't remember now which one. I think it was February. But I was like, "Oh, absolutely." And then when I went back to read the details, well, what I did was I said, "Let me see who they play on the 20th," right? And then I was like, "OMG, they're playing Georgetown." So in my mind, I was going to be at the arena at UConn to do that game for CBS Sports in New York. So after reading the details, they were like, "Well, you'll be in the studio in New York, but the game's going to be going on. You're going to recap like the whole day of basketball." And I'm like, "Okay."
There you go.
But it was still, we still had a chance to talk about her a little bit. They did a two-headed graphic with Bree and AZ Fudd, who she basically grew up with, played 3 years of AAU ball with. I recruited AZ's mom, Katie Sparkaduffy Fudd, now back when she was coming out of high school when I was coaching college. So it's like this whole cyclical, full circle situation, but almost is the answer to that.
Good. Well, hopefully soon. Hopefully soon.
Yeah.
Christy Winters-Scott is our guest here on Sports Spectrum. Tell me about your faith in Jesus. Why is it important to you? That's what the show is. I mean, we could talk sports all day, but our show is unique because of that question. So tell me about your faith and kind of how it guides you and carries you each day.
Oh man. I mean, you just said it. I mean, it's the grace and mercy that I just rely on every single day. My dad, rest his soul, passed 3 years ago. Oh, you got the tears going, Jason.
I'm sorry, Christy. Not my intention.
Okay. I'm fine. It's but he was a pastor for 55 years. So I was a PK. Everyone says, preacher's kid.
Sure.
But we were at church like all day long on Sundays. We were at choir rehearsals on Wednesdays, church meetings on Tuesdays. Like we were always there. Until my brother, who is 13 months older, got his driver's license. So then we stayed for like 2 services instead of 4 on Sunday sometimes. And then we go home and play basketball. But anyway, but I think for me, the faith that I saw both my parents living their life with, and the selfless deeds that they did, not looking for a thank you. My dad was huge in community relief and food for others. He started that in the Northern Virginia area. And just, he wasn't doing it for, grandiose recognition. He just knew that people needed help. And I mean, for me, my mom says that my coaching is my way of preaching.
Yeah.
Which, I don't have, scriptures that I tap into with the kids. But I do have the ideals from the scriptures, about the moments that they're in and how to be grateful for those, and to be a team and how important that is to help one another. And that goes back to what my dad taught me. Just to be able to, sorry.
Okay.
I'm fine. 2 seconds. Okay. It just goes back to what it means to give, and that's why for me, excuse me, as a coach, I really loathe selfishness, and I think that's what it is. So when I see it, I say it, and I'm like, if there's an open player, you got to pass to that player, make or miss. If they make or miss that shot, we'll live and die with that. But for me, selfish basketball is a no-no. But I think it's a life lesson. So I think the reason why I'm so passionate about basketball is because I'm passionate about life, and I'm passionate about team. And I learned that through my walk with Christ. And I know that, you're going to have people who don't understand that, who actually hate the way that you do things or carry yourself, or, what you're passionate about. People always have opinions. But for me, I know I'm doing the right thing. By the way, I'm teaching the kids not just, X and O's. X and O's will go away, but it's all about the Jills and Joes. I like to say it's all about the people.
Yeah.
And their legacy is not how many trophies they win, but their legacy. And I just told the kids this at the end of the season this year, is that their legacy won't be known until, 5-10 years from now. And what they're doing to make the world better, what they're doing to give back, number one. But we've had some really great kids, like Princess Aguirre graduated from South Lakes High School years ago, 2015, I believe, and went on to play basketball at UPenn, and then received a grant to form her company that's called Rebound Liberia. And she does camps, but has an educational foundation over there. But it was like a $250,000 grant for her and two of her friends to go to Liberia, where she's from. Like, she's from Ghana, and go back there and have this great organization. So, I mean, there are stories like that about a lot of people, but I mean, the give back, the helping of others, through things, introducing them to things that will introduce them to who they are in terms of their character. Those are the things. That's why I coach. That's what, my walk is. And that's why mom says I'm a preacher in that way, because I'm shining a light on who these young women can become. And that's why I say it's my fourth child, because I'm like totally passionate about the empowerment of women. It's not just when there's like Mother's Day or International Women's Day. It's like, it's all the time. Like our summer camps are built just for girls, because I was like one of, 3 girls at a camp with 100 boys and never touched the basketball. I never got to really understand what true team was, because going back to what I was saying about being selfish, like girls, like we're not going to pass to her, like selfish situation.
Sure.
But when we had all the girls there, it was selfless. And that's what we're teaching them at a young age. So now with these campers that have been through those summer camps and then now just graduated, from South Lakes this year, that's it for me, to see where they've come from, but also knowing that those seeds were planted years ago. And then to see a player like Princess Aguirre blossom and grow and help each other. I think that's what life is all about. And that's what I'd like to say I've learned on my daily walk. And I'm not perfect by any chance, and nobody is. I'm still striving, and every day I'm learning about myself, but also learning of the best way to reach our youngsters and our next generation of leaders, especially young women. So for me, it's very profound in terms of what my purpose here is. And if that's my purpose, then I want to be the best at it. As I said earlier, I'm super competitive. So I want to be the best. And I want to work hard at giving my best to others so they can in turn give the best to others.
Well, as a dad who has one child, and it's my girl, Sarah, and Sarah is going to be 18 and graduate this year. But I think about, I saw the empowerment of women in a different light when I became a dad. I'm a sports dude, but I'm also, one of 3 boys. You get 3 guys around for, from the ages of whatever we were till even now. There's a lot of, you can just guess what that's like. But then when you have a little girl and you watch her grow up, and she grows up into this incredible woman who's now, plays volleyball, plays softball, getting ready to go to college, you see it in a different light. And I just hear you, how passionate you are. And I think about Sarah, my daughter, I think about all the young ladies that she's friends with and think, man, they need a Christy Winters-Scott in their life, And I don't mean to just tote you up this way, but it's true. You need women who are older, who've been through it, who just want to love them and care about them and love them for who they are as people, not just because they play a sport or can score a basket for you, right?
Exactly. I mean, that's the key. I mean, even if, and we've had in the past, like at South Lakes, there have been some kids who've been hard to get to in that way. Yeah. And it's tough, but I always tell them that tough love is also love, right? And as parents, right, we have seen things, like we have lived we have lived some life, right? And
Yeah.
we see a little bit further down the line than these teenagers do. And I just try to make sure that they are understanding the platform that they actually have, and that's to be their best. And if there are situations where if they're late for practice, but there's no call or text or anything like that, I'm like, that happens on your job, you get fired. You know, you
right.
have to be responsible and accountable and have integrity behind what you're doing or saying. And we're human, so we'll you know, if we get a flat tire, Jason, like we're gonna text somebody and say, hey, I have a flat tire, or I'm gonna be like 10 minutes late, so you're not worried. But these kids are on our watch. We don't know where they are. If a parent pops in like, where's Sally? Well, we don't know because she didn't text. She's just late. Like that's not acceptable. Not just for our basketball program, but that's a life skill. So, and it may sound like, oh, Coach Scott's being so mean. Coach Scott is looking out for your benefit moving forward in your entire life, not just about running this press offense here. Or it's not like you just walk in and you're late and you don't say anything and then we just move on to the next thing. Like, no, like that's not acceptable anywhere else. And it's certainly not acceptable here. And those are the lessons that the kids need to learn early. And they can think I'm mean, you know, if I shine a light on that, like we're not doing that. Like that can't be what we stand for here with our program. So I think it's, like I said, it's always going to be bigger than basketball for me. It's always going to be about, you know, who these young women can become. But when you see that true change and that light bulb go off, where if you are running late, now I get a text message, or something is happening, but now there's a line of communication. So we know what's going on. You see growth and you see possibilities. And I think that's what you want, you know, as a parent, but you also want that as a coach. You want to see that they understand their responsibilities in terms of being accountable for themselves. And like I said, having integrity behind all of that is paramount for me. And I have thick skin now, like we're older. So it's like, you know, you can think that's mean and that's fine, but guess what's not going to happen? You doing that again, right? Like we have to, like, this is what we're doing here. And this is how we're doing it, because in 5 years, we want you to be your best, like, company owner. We want you to be the best worker. We want you to be the best college student, you know, with your teachers. We want you to be responsible and back yourself up like that. So that's why we take great pride in that. Our whole program does. And we're all together in that.
Oh, that's good. Christy, this is my last question. Thank you so much for your time. You have Galatians 6 on your Instagram bio. I'm going to read it. Let us not grow weary in doing good, for in due season we shall reap a harvest if we do not lose heart, if we do not give up. Why that verse?
Because that's me. And that's going to make me cry. That's a trifecta for you, Jason. That's a trifecta.
I'm sorry, Christy. I don't know if I won or lost here, but I feel
I think you won. But for me, it's like, I guess going back to what I was saying about my dad. Just to see all the things that he did, excuse me, to help people. And again, he never wanted to be, I'm sorry, he never wanted to be thanked or patted on the back. He would get calls at 2 a.m. to help people who were in trouble. And he would get out of the bed and go. I just think just to have that modeled, that's why that scripture stands out to me. Oh my God, sorry.
It's okay.
That's why it stands out to me, because he never got weary. And the same for my mom, who was right by his side. They would both get up and go to help others. And were they tired? Absolutely. But when you're doing what you're supposed to do, when you're selfless, and no one knew about those late night calls, and there were many. Nobody knew about that, and they wouldn't talk about it. You know, like, well, I went out at 2 a.m. and helped people who were in trouble, or help people that got evicted, or help people that didn't have any food. they would just help. And I think for me to see that, just as a young girl and a young woman, I think that just shaped and formed my resilience, but also my persistence. And regardless of anything, perception, I'm very passionate and animated when I coach. That doesn't mean I'm angry. That doesn't mean that, I'm anything less than, because I'm a woman, displaying that passion. I'm not like a Phil Jackson coach, like that sits and just watches the game, and you do all your work in practice. And I understand that, and coaches can do that. But I just have a feeling that I just want to let the kids know that I'm there for them. Yes. So if they do have a turnover or something like that, I want to be standing up saying, you got the next one. Keep going, keep persevering. And I think, again, that's why that scripture stands to me, because I mean, it's frustrating, right? If you don't get everything right, in basketball and in life. But I think for me, don't grow weary in your attempt to do the right things. And in that respect, you always have to follow your heart in that way. And I think for me, that scripture will always hold true. And you do get weary sometimes, because it's like, man, it's like I gave my best today and we lost the game, or I gave my best today and it didn't go well. Like today was not a good day. But your approach, your integrity to the task at hand, whatever that may be, in life or with sports, I think that has to be something that you're looking in the mirror at, and not the result, right? I think it has to be effort-based. I think it has to be attention-based. And I know I've said integrity a lot, but I think, you can't ask the best of other people if you're not giving your best yourself. And I think as a mom, and as a coach and a broadcaster, I think I'd like to be known as someone who gave their absolute best, whether I win or lose, just in life, not with games. I don't even know how many games as a coach I've won. Like, people I know keep record in the analytics and blah, blah. I don't know how many games I've won, but I know how many kids' lives I've impacted, or I've hoped to impact. I'd like to think that the things that I say, the things that I do, impact them on a level where they look back in 10 years and say, oh yeah, this is what Coach Scott was talking about. Mm-hmm. The perseverance, the push through, and the keep going attitude that you have to have regardless. And it's next play, right? It's next play on the court, and it's next play off the court, and you will be weary, but there's a next play. And I think that's where I am in my life with that.
Well, it seems like you're in a good due season, as Galatians just said, Christy. This was great. Thanks so much for being here. Sorry that I didn't feel like I made you cry, but I'm sorry.
No, it was cathartic, actually. It really, really got things focused in for me. And I love that. And I appreciate you more than you know about bringing that out.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you being on the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jason.